Adobe's Cloud Creative Cloud integration on the iPad Pro. Well, I guess iPad in general. I didn't know that I could draw a thing and then just say send to Photoshop and then look up from my chair and Photoshop would launch on my desktop and run the thing.
Clever.
That's great.
Yeah. I didn't
From
know
a
that
creative
either.
standpoint, that's very interesting to me.
I love anything that takes away me having to do something to get to the thing I want to do.
Yeah.
If that
I mean,
makes any sense.
literally, like all I do is go open in Photoshop. I'm not even on the same network. I'm on a different Wi-Fi connection, and there it is. It just loads. That's really cool. Just productivity-wise, that's huge for me. I just got it today, so I'm putting it through. I don't have
Put it through its paces.
pen doesn't get here till Friday.
Which pen?
The pencil, the art pencil thing.
Oh, the iPad Pro one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't order one.
I mean, for me, it's
you definitely need one. I ordered a keyboard, but then I canceled it because I went to the Apple store and they had the Logitech Creative, and it has a better keyboard. It's heavier though.
I heard better things about it though.
It's a much better keyboard.
How much heavier? Is it a lot heavier?
It makes the iPad Pro feel heavy, whereas the iPad Pro without a case doesn't feel heavy at all.
Oh, it feels weirdly light.
Yeah.
I need to look that up. Remind me the name of it again. Which one is it?
The Logitech Creative.
Right.
Yes. So you're good on all the horrible names and weird things to pronounce that I gave you?
I think so. I don't think there's anything. I didn't see anything that was crazy.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything too crazy today, actually.
I'm going to zip down, just make sure I didn't miss anything in this one.
Ellie's good? Ellie's good with it.
All right. Oh, yeah, let me kill the audio.
All right. Bye, Ellie. First of all, thanks to Big Jim for the mug that says, "Hi, my name is Tom Merida. My wife works at YouTube." That is fantastic. He also gave me stickers that say the same thing that I can wear. Hello, my name is Tom. My wife works at YouTube.
I'm Tom. I'm your first friend on MySpace.
I signed up for MySpace before they did that. So
Tom really?
Was never my friend.
Oh, how do you even... Yeah, you were early on all that Friendster business and everything, weren't you?
Yeah.
No.
Dogster, Friendster, all that.
Well, good. Someone had to be. Yeah, that Tom guy just like speaks, invests, and has tons of followers on every other social platform but the one he helped start. Funny.
Does Justin Timberlake have a lot of followers on MySpace?
I don't know if he does.
I don't know either.
He has a lot of followers everywhere he goes.
I think he probably does. They're called paparazzi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get the show on the air.
All right. I
Here
think I'm
we
okay with that.
go.
Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by me. You're welcome. But it's also brought to you by over 4,000 other people who also find some value in it every day. If you listen for the next 30 minutes and get even a little bit of value out of it yourself, consider going to patreon.com and searching for Daily Tech News Show and giving some value back. Now roll that beautiful theme music.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, November 18th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, as he does most Wednesdays, if it's Wednesday, it's Scott Johnson.
Is it Wednesday? We better make sure. Yep, it looks like it is Wednesday. Everything's fine.
Where do you go to confirm that it's Wednesday?
I went immediately up to this little drop down on my desktop that says...
Well, that could be wrong. That could be spoofed.
It's true. I
think the only way to be sure is to go out and look at the stars.
Oh, is that the only way to be sure?
And then check validated star charts
to
determine that it is in fact Wednesday. It depends on what calendar, too. Gregorian calendar, Julian calendar. Which one do you keep?
These are terrible ideas.
There's just no way of knowing what day it is, Scott.
Yeah. I keep a sundial on my wrist at all times, and right now
Smart.
it's yeah.
There's just because you should trust no one unless you wear your own sundial. We're going to talk about the future of cars and whether the old and young will just stop owning cars, and us people left in the middle will be like, what's wrong with you? But it will cause cars to be driven in larger amounts. But first, the headlines. Google will no longer require app makers to have matching web content in order to have their app pages show up in search results, especially for mobile. And Google is experimenting with streaming apps in a virtual machine for users who don't have the app installed on their device but want to see where the search result goes to. If you want to do the indexing, developers just need to implement an API. The new streaming function is rolling out for launch partners. It will work for users in the US running the Google app on Android, Lollipop, or later. So certain partners have said, okay, yeah, do this. And if I search on mobile and I see a result for an app that I don't have, like Hotels Now is one of the examples, and I click on it or tap on it, it will run a virtualized version of that app so I can see the page I was looking for.
So, but it's not, I mean, let's say it's a paid app. Is this a preview, or is this just apply to free apps? Maybe we don't know those details yet.
It's just a preview of the app, right? It could be paid or free. It doesn't matter because you won't be able to save it. You will be able to tap around in it, but you wouldn't be able to create an account or stuff like that, I guess.
Interesting. The virtualization of everything, video games, apps, all this stuff is fascinating to me, and I feel like that stuff's just going to get better and better. So,
to me, as an iconoclast who thinks the web is still the best platform and we should focus our energies there instead of app platforms, it shows all the hoops and things that you have to jump through to make the world work the way it does on the web naturally.
That's a good point. Once again, Tom Merritt has blown my mind. How about this? Facebook is making its donate button for charities available on posts instead of just pages. This means it'll show up in the news feed. Facebook also handles the payment so users don't have to go off to some other place and make a donation. Starting Wednesday, charities can also launch a standalone fundraiser page separate from their main page. They're testing these tools with 37 partner groups. This includes World Wildlife Fund, Mercy Corps, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. Nonprofits interested in signing up for this thing can go to donations.fb.com.
That donation button allowing you to pay with your Facebook account is the huge one here.
Yeah, and if you so once again, you're talking about a thing that lets you skip a bunch of steps and go straight.
So if you've ever put your credit card into Facebook for something else, now if you want to donate, you click donate and it says how much. You put in the amount. You press OK, and then Facebook handles all the payment process. That kind of frictionless stuff is helpful, especially with the donate buttons could show up in your news feed, which means you're much more likely to want to donate. Josh Constein from TechCrunch looked at this and called these pages kind of like Kickstarters because they're like, look, you can have a fundraising goal and you can have milestones and stuff like that. It's only for nonprofits, obviously, but it's kind of that model.
And this isn't, I mean, is Facebook taking a cut of this, or does this all go to the charity?
No. In fact, it's the opposite. Facebook isn't even charging their launch partners the credit card fees, but Facebook said they will eventually charge credit card fees, but that's all. They will not take a cut of the proceeds. This will just be to encourage charities to use Facebook.
That seems like a good idea.
Yeah. Fungal54 had a good idea. He wanted us to mention Google Plus has a new design that focuses on communities and collections more than individuals. If you don't know what those are, maybe you don't use Google Plus. Communities are groups of people posting around a topic. We have a Cord Killers community, for instance. And then collections are posts about a topic gathered by someone. So I can start a collection of 10-speed and brown shoe links. And anytime someone posts about that, I'll add it to my collection. It will be a very small collection.
I was going to ask, are there any entries in that?
They'll all be my own posts. The new look also fits in with Google's material design aesthetic. You can opt into the design if you want on the web, and updated iOS and Android apps will be rolling out over the next few days.
I'm interested in this to see what they do to change things up with Google Plus, because Google Plus is we talked about it in the morning stream today, but it's such an interesting ecosystem that doesn't quite still know exactly what it's for or who it's for. And we're glad it exists, and I'm glad I can log in with it in certain places, and all these things it does are cool, but there's still some jury out on what exactly we want out of it.
They definitely changed directions on Google Plus, and I think a lot of people felt like, well, that's it for Google Plus. They're just going to hack it away until it's gone. This makes it clear that at least not yet. They plan to try to make Google Plus work for something, even if they're not trying to put it in everything, which is what they were doing a few years ago. So they have not abandoned Google Plus. And the change is not dramatic. It's mostly just that material design thing. But having collections and communities front and center makes sense, because those are the things that are still getting a lot of people to use them versus just the general conversation, which happens for some people, doesn't happen for everyone on Google Plus.
True enough. 9 to 5 Mac reports an official Apple Watch dock has been showing up in stores and is now available online for $79. That's 89 euros in Europe. It will be available for an in-store pickup in the U.S. on November 20th. That is just around the corner, 2 days from now. The dock lets the watch lay flat or sit upright in a nightstand mode and charges the watch. It comes with a 2-meter-long lightning cable as well. I want to add something to this real quick about cables. One of my chief complaints about iOS devices, both phone and iPad in years past, has been how short those freaking cables are. The charging cables are way too short. I always feel like I can't just grab my phone and pull it close up to my face at night without yanking the cord out. iPad Pro cable, big, long cable. So way to go. You finally got it right.
It's 2015. Long cables are finally in.
They're back, baby. But
is it like the size? Is it like the length of skirts? Does the length of the cable indicate the strength of the economy?
Is that what that? I didn't know that indicated the strength of the economy.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, I think that's cool, and I think people who have Apple Watches might be willing to take advantage of this. It's a little handier than just that little dot that you have to lay the Apple Watch on. That's the one that comes with it. Plus, if you buy this, then you can use that charger as a second charger elsewhere. It does mean that Apple will be putting their own dock front and center in the store now. The New York Times reports New York's Attorney General Eric T. Schneiderman has issued a subpoena to Yahoo in his investigation of daily fantasy sports. Yahoo added daily fantasy in July and is now the third largest daily fantasy sports provider after those names you probably know if you watch any kind of sports, DraftKings and FanDuel. Yahoo has offered year-long fantasy leagues since back when I had to stop at internet cafes in order to update my baseball lineup. So this new daily thing is what's new for Yahoo. DraftKings and FanDuel were denied a temporary restraining order from the New York Supreme Court this week, and Schneiderman filed an injunction to make them cease and desist until the trial on November 25th. Yahoo hasn't been added to the case yet. They've just been subpoenaed because they're under investigation.
Wow. Yeah, that whole thing. And also they do a lot of podcast advertising. You hear these guys all the time.
Yeah, if you don't know what's going on, DraftKings, FanDuel, and now Yahoo being investigated as to whether they are gambling. Mm-hmm. Or because this is different than just fantasy sports where you and your friends create a league and then play over the course of the year. This is a daily, like, I'm going to pick these people to have the best day in sports today, and if you have the most points of the day, you win money.
Yeah, and that seems like gambling to me anyway. I don't know how this is all going to shake out, but ever since the first DraftKings commercial I heard, I went, that seems like gambling. Is that even legal in some of these states? And I guess now we'll find out. JSN Phil wanted to pass along the Reuters report that New York taxi owners and their creditors are suing New York City. That's right, the Big Apple and the Taxi Limousine Commission in Manhattan Federal Court. Suit complains that services like Uber and Lyft violate medallion exclusivity and face fewer regulatory requirements. Suit seeks damages and easing of regulatory requirements. So yeah, this is I keep expecting more of this, and it seems like it's less of a kerfuffle than I think it should be. But I'm surprised it takes so long for some of these taxi groups and what do you call them? They're I guess there's some are in unions, but for them to kind of go at the throat of Lyft and Uber and try to take back what they think is rightfully theirs.
Yeah, they have a league, the League of Taxi Operators, I think.
I think if they just cleaned up the cabs, had really good service, didn't pretend the meter was down, and then they had to only take cash, and all these things they do.
League of Mutual Taxi Owners. No, actually, I disagree with you on that because what they've done is they've stopped fighting Uber and trying to make Uber illegal, and now they're going to the city and saying, hold on a minute, and here's why I think they have a case. You told us for years we had to spend money buying medallions to be able to be allowed to pick up people on the street. And so if we didn't get a medallion and we couldn't afford a medallion, we couldn't run a taxi company. Then you let these guys just come in and start picking people up on the street, and they don't even have to do all the insurance or have like a certain percentage of their cars have accessibility for people in wheelchairs. And so it becomes really hard for us to compete with them. That is unfair. How is it that you're letting them operate and yet you haven't changed the rules for us?
Well, you could say that, but couldn't you also sue somebody and say, hey, I worked for CBS News for years, and they made us not say these certain words on the air, but all these podcasters can swear all day.
Well, because the government was saying, if you are broadcasting, you can't say these things on air, but if you're on cable, you can say whatever you want. And if you're on the web, you can say whatever you want. What the taxi drivers are saying is, you're not saying you have to have a medallion to drive on these streets over here and not those streets over there. You're saying anybody who picks people up off the street has to have a medallion. Oh, unless they're those guys. Yeah,
it just feels like such a genie out of the bottle now, and it's so hard to, I mean, just from a practical standpoint, this is true. They've been held to standards that are now being eroded. Well, why are they being eroded? Well, because now there's this new thing that just kind of makes sense and is super easy and not.
But there are two sets of rules, right? And I get the taxi drivers saying, well, sure, if everybody was allowed to just be Uber, then that would be one thing. But you won't even let us operate in the same way as them. Because Uber doesn't have to have, as far as I understand it, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think Uber has to have a percentage of their cars be accessible.
Yeah. What would be
That's one of their big things that they want as part of this case. They're like, we want them to drop that percentage.
What do you think? This is just an idea, a totally weird forecast I did, but what if you had every single taxi driver in the country suddenly band together and agree to be a part of a shareholder in a big giant company called Bongo or something, whatever you want to call it, and they basically are now Uber, but
They already do that. There are already apps that have united lots of different taxi companies together and allow you to call them and schedule them and pay them through the app. The difference is they have to still abide by the taxi rules in their various locations.
All right. They have a point then, if that's the case. They should not have to do that if that's the case.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Uber should have to do that. The Verge drone maker DJI announced that it will implement a geofencing safety system for its drones starting in December. The Geospatial Environment Online system will use map information from AirMap to prevent DJI-branded drones from entering or taking off from restricted areas. And the maps will be updated pretty frequently as those restrictions change. So, for instance, you can fly over a stadium if there's nobody in it, but then the restriction might happen when there's a big event there. DJI drone users can only bypass the system, and they can't bypass the system if they have a verified account with the company, but they are not allowed to ever bypass the system for national security concerns, like certain areas in Washington, D.C. So if they get permission from the team to fly over the stadium, they can get registered with DJI and fly over the stadium on that day, but they're never going to be allowed to fly over the Pentagon is essentially what that means.
Quad companies being willing to integrate this stuff voluntarily is a good sign to me. That helps the whole pending problem of what are we going to do to quote unquote regulate these things or whatever. I feel like they're doing what, and I hate to bring everything back to video games. Sometimes it's appropriate though, but the video game industry inventing and applying a rating system in the 90s so that they could come up with something that was fair, that they could control, that was transparent, so that you didn't have to have somebody come in and hold your hand and regulate it governmentally or otherwise. Really worked out well for them. And
the film industry did that before games. Games borrowed it from the film industry.
Yeah, that's true. So while both of those things aren't perfect and have their issues, I like it when an industry is forward facing enough to say, well, look, we need to take charge of our own issues. We know their issues. We don't need just to fight it on every corner and act like it's a human right to have a quad flying over everything all the time. So this is all.
And granted, the FAA is moving towards putting in regulations like this. So some of this is just companies getting on board ahead of those regulations coming into, but it's still a good thing.
Sure. Google announced YouTube will now be available for offline viewing in Nigeria. I got some money in Nigeria if you're looking for a deal.
Oh, stop.
Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa. Videos with an offline icon can now be saved for viewing within 48 hours. Now, Tom, I assume that means like everything from, an hour-long seminar thing video or a dumb little 2-second I crashed on my skateboard video. It doesn't matter.
In fact, YouTube says in this Google blog posting that most videos that are accessible will be available for offline viewing. And you don't have to pay extra for that. That's just something that you can get in these countries because in these countries, buffering is an issue. So YouTube is saying, hey, we still want you to watch YouTube videos, so we're going to make this available there. Yeah. The Verge reports Facebook activated its safety check feature in response to a bombing in Nigeria Tuesday that killed 32 people and injured many more. The feature, which allows people to check in and tell friends they're safe, was deployed after the Paris attacks last Friday. Facebook was criticized for using the tool for Paris, but not for previous attacks like the one in Beirut on last Thursday. Facebook said the tool was initially developed for natural disasters, but they are now in the process of making guidelines to use it more efficiently for other tragedies around the world. And it's a good thing. As Patrick mentioned at the beginning of yesterday's show, is something that he saw people using quite a bit in Paris.
Yeah, it was good to, I mean, the first thing I did when I heard about the news was try to find out where Patrick was. And then he said, I'm in Finland and everything's okay and my family's all right. And so I was able to find it that way. But I can only imagine there were plenty of people who appreciate a system like this where, you know, some sort of broadcasty kind of way of letting everybody know who's okay and who isn't is a good thing. So I'm glad they're implementing it on the whole. Have they ever, previous to the Paris event though, did they do this before? Were there other?
They had pretty much, and I don't want to say for certain because I haven't looked into it that closely, but they had pretty much only used it for natural disasters. So Paris was a unique situation in that they were using it for something that was not a natural disaster. And of course, people pointed out, well, why didn't you turn it on in Lebanon last Thursday? And Facebook said, yeah, we probably should have. We hadn't really created a policy for these kind of situations before. And so this is the result of that, saying, okay, we've got, sadly, something happening in Nigeria. We'll turn it on there.
It'd be great if we didn't have too many more of those things happening. That would be.
Yeah. We have way too many of them.
Yeah.
You know, the thing in Turkey, the Russian plane in Egypt, Kenya, as I mentioned, and there's plenty I'm missing. It's way too frequent. Yeah. That, however, are the stories that we are covering today. A combination of my own determinations of Jenny and Roger and Scott, and of course you. Make your voice heard. DailyTechNewsShow.reddit.com, where one of the people we listen to is you. If you're voting or if you're submitting links, go there, DailyTechNewsShow.reddit.com, and that is a look at the headlines. I moved my tablet a while ago, and I've gotten comfortable enough that I've forgotten where I moved it. So that's why you saw me kind of. And that is, where did I put it? Oh, there it is over there. Okay. So urban living millennials apparently don't value car ownership quite as much as us old people. At least that's the conventional wisdom. And the reason is because they're using Uber and Lyft and Car2Go and all these other ride sharing, Ola in India. Well, here in the United States, KPMG did an analysis with focus groups in Atlanta, Chicago, and Denver. And they project, based on talking to people, and there was representative samples across all age groups, that car ownership and therefore car sales may fall in the next 20 to 30 years, but annual vehicle miles driven may rise. In other words, cars will be used more often. They won't be sitting in people's garages as much because people won't own them. They'll just be used, and they may even be self-driving. They say 35% more annual miles will be driven in the United States by 2050. There were 2 trillion miles driven estimated this year. Self-driving cars could make that demand even more if they're picked up and become popular. They talk about baby boomers plus, which is the 45 to 75-year-old demographic that just includes Scott and I as baby boomers, which I'm not comfortable with. Thank you.
I am not comfortable with that at all, dude. We were called Generation X, and I am owning that. We're keeping
Generation X is the generation that never got any respect, and then you just throw us in with the baby boomers. Thanks a lot, KPMG. 45 to 75-year-olds, though, are concerned about safety in the groups that they talked about. So they're like, well, you know, as you get older and your action time starts to slow down, your eyesight goes away, it would be nice to have someone else driving you, taking advantage of Uber and Lyft, and especially self-driving cars. The other is kids, 10 to 15. Which you may say, well, wait a minute, they can't drive anyway. But there are car sharing services for parents that are arriving. The Fortune article about this mentions one called Hop Skip Drive, which does intense background checks on the drivers and requires them to be certified in child care to drive. So we're not talking about just any old, ride sharing service. These are validated drivers so that moms can send kids to basketball practice or have them picked up at basketball practice or things like that. They may get used to that so that when they start to get older, they're like, why would I buy a car? You just order one. You have it come and pick you up and take you where you want to go.
Yeah, I think that this is all true. The number that really boggles me a little bit is the 35% jump in mileage spent, despite the fact that less and less people own those cars. So what we have here, it feels like we have the potential anyway, of an industry butting up against a trend, and the industry going, oh no, sales are down, whatever, they're down, and we're seeing a decline over time. It's like cell phones hurting PC sales, for example. And well, what do? Do we see a bunch of them fold? Do they come together and become larger automakers? What happens to all the cars that aren't being driven? That's the one thing about cars is the more people buy them, the more they are in the system. And as if we start driving them less, that means we're going to start seeing cars laying around. And I don't think it's going to look like Fallout 4 or anything, but there's going to be some junkers on the side of the road that you don't know quite what to do.
But think that through. If people are buying fewer cars, the car manufacturers make fewer cars.
Yeah.
If they're making fewer cars, they're not making as much money. And that's the other side of this story. KPMG believes that in 10 years, many automakers may no longer be around, or at least not independent companies. And they talk about the fact that what we have developed around smartphones and gadgets, where we like to have new ones every couple of years, and we really want to customize them. We want them to evolve even after we purchase them. We want them to be flexible and configurable, may start applying to cars. So for the people who do want to own cars, they may swap cars out more often because they want to upgrade to the latest model. And for the people who are using them as ride shares, or the companies that are buying them, they may want to make sure that, like, we've got premium versions of cars now. You can upgrade to this fancier self-driving car, which is like a mobile office or a mobile entertainment studio or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like what we're actually witnessing is the literal real-time evolution of public transportation without us even knowing it. Because a lot of us look at it and go, oh, this is convenient. This little app here, I can tell a guy I need to be picked up. Oh, a Honda just showed up. I'm in the car. I didn't even have to pay him a tip or nothing. They just took me to the airport or whatever. Like, there's something about that feels novel and kind of in the face of traditional taxi services, and we're all feeling real rebellious about it right now. But it feels like maybe we're witnessing this really broad change in the way that we get around and how we're going to get around. The real question for me, though, is, what does it look like in 20 years when 35% jump in miles driven a year, but way less cars sold? Does that look like less cars on the road? Are those cars on the road just more often? Are there people doing ride sharing? Is it even called ride sharing then? Is it just autonomous cars that have nobody in them but robots picking us up at that point? Like, that to me is fascinating. The next 20 years are going to be really, really interesting. And I, for one, we're in the middle, right? We grew up being told, well, part of living the life is you have a house payment and you buy a car and you drive that car.
Like
maybe
a house with a 2-car garage.
Exactly.
Don't park any cars in, but forget that.
There's a weird permanence to that. What you just said sounds right to me, right? Because that's what we've always been taught and told. And you couldn't wait to afford your own car. You may have only spent $300 on it, but man, you were glad to have it, and you fixed it up and patched the tires and did whatever, and then you graduated onto a better car, and now you're paying off something decent, and that's maybe going to go away. So I, for one, want to be open to all of this, but I'm guessing there's going to be real resistance from this middle crowd.
Well, and that's just it, right? As you get older and you start to not be able to take advantage of that independence, it makes sense to say, well, I liked owning a car, but now I'm just frightened to be out on the streets. So yeah, let's go into ride sharing. And I know there's some of you out there like, I know my grandpa, he won't stop driving, or my grandma always makes sure she drives, even though she probably shouldn't be. But ride sharing, I think, will reduce the number of people who really do that. When they like, oh, you mean I could just have somebody else drive me? Okay, maybe that's better. But kids growing up with it as being the norm are not going to be raised in that tradition that you're talking about. And that tradition is a small blip in time.
Yep.
I mean, you think about New York City of the 1880s, which I'm thinking about a lot because we're reading Time and Again by Jack Finney for the Sword and Laser pick. People didn't own their own horses and carts for the most part. Yeah. They relied on hansom cabs or trolleys or trains or whatever to get around. And in fact, Schnago in our chat room says, on my street right now, there are 2-hour cars, 2 cars to go. Uber time is 3 minutes. Public transit is 2 blocks away. Why do I want a car payment?
Yeah, it doesn't make. I mean, that's the other thing is think about car payments. Let's say average of $400 a month for a car for a family. Why would you want to keep doing that? Like, that's the part that really rings true to me. I would much rather say, well, here's $12 and I don't need to drive anywhere for the next 3 days. I mean, I'm going to pay so much less per month. So if you're a guy that has to commute all the time, it makes sense for you. For a guy who hardly has to commute at all, it makes sense for you. Like there's real sense to all of this. The real question to me is like, will we see less people on the road? What does this mean? Less congestion? Does this traffic problem go away?
I think it doesn't mean fewer people on the road. If you're talking about 35% more annual miles in the U.S., then there are not fewer people on the road. There are more people on the road. But maybe there's less congestion. Because instead of everybody trying to like take their own way, especially if you've got automated cars, they may drive more efficiently.
I think that's probably true. I still can't get the math worked out though. Like if they're going to be that much, 35. If you said 10% more, 20% more even, I would have gone, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's just more people getting rides. But 35% makes me not feel like the math's right because that's a big jump. But we're saying less cars sold. Well, the car's got to come from someplace.
Well, think of it this way, though. Each of us has a car in our garage, and then there's the car that like, for instance, I have a car in my garage right now, and Eileen took her car and drove to work.
Yeah.
If, however, we lived in this future, Eileen would have taken a ride share to work. That same car then would have taken someone else somewhere, then taken someone else somewhere. Then this afternoon when I go to the grocery store, instead of taking my own car, I would have taken that same car, and then that car goes and takes somebody else and somebody else. Then it goes, picks Eileen up, brings her home. That's one car instead of two cars, but it drove a lot more than the two cars that we own drove.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's totally true. But so the people that choose to do this, since they're going to be doing all the driving, does that, I guess this means automatically way more Uber and Lyft and whatever the companies are in the future, way more of those people.
Yeah. Well, more of those people or automated. That's the question, right? And they say if automated catches on, you may even see more miles driven.
Yeah, I feel like the automated thing is the big kicker here because you're going to hit a certain tipping point where everyone can't be an Uber driver, but everyone needs to go somewhere. So automated cars seem like the right answer because then you're not relying on that human factor.
And being a little unsure and confused about this is not a sign of misunderstanding. Gary Stillberg, national automotive leader for KPMG, which did this study, said in the press release about this, those increases would have a profound but unknown impact on vehicle sales, car ownership models, energy demand, and infrastructure. And to be quite frank, I'm not sure people understand the enormity of the change, nor are we ready for it.
I will agree with him on the enormity. I think the ready for it takes time, but I don't feel like, because this has been a slow transition anyway. You could argue that we didn't start, ride sharing began in let's say 2006 or 7 when the smartphone was a thought and a possible thing that would get manufactured. It doesn't really exist without that. So these smaller outside evolutions are what informs things you never even thought of, and Uber's one of those things you never even thought of without a world with tons of smartphones. So I don't think it's fast. I think it's nice and it's fast in the human history sort of way, but in a kind of our lifetime kind of way, it's taken its time.
Yeah.
10, 15, maybe 20 years, all of this will seem like ancient history, and we will be driving around with Johnny Cabs, and it'll all be fine. It'll all work out.
That's a fair point. Yeah. I do think the automotive industry, though, which has to think in 10-year out terms, probably does need to start figuring this out right away.
Well, and a lot of what they've done, their cycle has been, yes, 10 years out, but they're 10 years out on the current model, right? They're 10 years out on, yes, this car, it's better gas mileage, or maybe it's a hybrid, or maybe it's sleeker design, or whatever the thing is that they're changing. They're thinking that far ahead, but they're not thinking about the complete and utter change in how we look at transportation or cars. So yeah, like they have to compress their thinking out range of time and get that closer to 2-3 years, not 10.
All right, let's get to our pick of the day from Byron in finally somewhat cooler Los Angeles, who writes, I've been messing around on a new video chat platform called Blab. Some other people I know have been talking about this too. Blab.im. It uses Twitter for logins, allows 4 people at a time to video chat, and even more can join in with a text area chat on the side. Still in beta, but so far I've not run into any serious issues. Seems to be a friendly, vibrant, and growing community. I've really enjoyed using it and thought DTNS listeners might like to as well. So there you go. Yeah. Blab away, folks. Blab.im. Thanks for the pick, Byron. Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. All right. We went a little long yesterday, so some of you noticed that these emails were in yesterday's show notes. Just pretend you didn't see that. Paul Benjamin in Manhattan, Kansas, was a draftsman for an engineering firm designing wastewater plants for a couple of years around the turn of the century, so 1999. Windows XP computers were used for operator interface on the SCADA systems. The scary part was the TCP/IP networks were just taking over from proprietary serial networks from the various vendors. The PLC, PCs, and valves were all on a standard 100 base T net. Now you know why the feds are always warning about SCADA systems on the internet. The operator computer bridges the SCADA network to the internet when the operator wants to look at Facebook on the old Windows XP computer that controls the valves. A little Wi-Fi is a dangerous thing.
Jeez. Yeah, that's don't cross the streams, man.
Right?
Yeesh.
And then Marlon, the guy from Trinidad, wrote this to myself and Patrick because he thought I would read it yesterday. A quick reply on the story of Google local guides from a couple days ago. He says, point one, this was an expansion of a service as they had rewards before. Then it was rebranded from the delightfully titled City Experts in February. Unlike Yelp, Local Guides is available worldwide. I believe Yelp is only available in about 40 countries. To get my recommendations, I often use and contribute not just to Local Guides, but also to Foursquare. And a free pro tip for any of you coming to Caribbean, use Foursquare. Final thing about the service is that many people don't realize it is a part of Google Maps. So when you search for a place, the reviews and photos that you see are part of local guides, and Google is trying to apply lessons learned from ye olde forums of internet past by giving us local guide badges. So you trust our reviews as we level up, and probably add a feature in the future where you can follow the top guides.
So it is, I didn't know that their local guides thing was, for some reason I thought that was some third party that was just tapped into the API from Google Maps. I didn't know it was Google themselves.
Yeah, well, they used to show Yelp, and I think I still see that show up sometimes. But yeah, they have their own system. And remember, they bought Zagat a while back, so I think that fed into this a little bit. And then going back to talking about old systems, Joe the pilot wrote, and this is probably in response to us talking about Orly shutting down because of a Windows 3.1 system, said, be prepared, folks. This is a hard one for people to hear. We don't always put the newest and shiniest iced tea stuff in airplanes. Why? Firstly, the certification process is painful for manufacturers because their off-the-shelf product isn't going to pass. In fact, the only mercy would be that it fails so fast the manufacturer wouldn't be out of a wheelbarrow of money. We make do because the systems that are finally certified are fairly bulletproof. Yes, Decor failed last week in Orly, but it will be investigated and problems fixed. RVR meters fail for all sorts of reasons, like the airport ops truck took a wrong turn in a blinding snowstorm and ran into it, and the next year the snowplow guy took it clean out of the ground along with the runway signage. This one is newsworthy because it's funny how old airport systems are, Windows 3.1. I'd love it all to be fixed tomorrow, but that takes money taxpayers won't spend. We've got a pretty safe system right now, so I'm not complaining. And then he adds, how do you tell the difference between a pilot and a jet engine? A jet engine stops whining when it gets to the gate.
Oh, zing!
That's a pilot making that joke, not me.
That's a pretty good pilot joke. That's not bad.
Good pilot joke.
We're getting a brand new airport in Salt Lake City. A lot of people don't know about this, but they are. It's weird. It's almost
What's
like
wrong
they're
with the old one.
But they're nothing really, except it's they want to expand. It's becoming a larger hub, so they want to build. They're basically just shifting the build site a little bit south. They'll build a whole new thing, all new terminals, everything, and then tear down the other one and make more runway over there.
Oh, okay.
My question would be, I wonder if that makes a difference. If you're talking about a whole new facility, whole new systems, brand new, air control tower, all that stuff.
He's talking about certification. So the same stuff that's certified to be used on the current airport would apply. Okay,
that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not like they're going, oh, it's a brand new airport, therefore let's run all the latest tech in there or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, maybe some things, but mostly these systems. And what he's saying is, look, it's Windows 3.1 for that system because that really works and it's been tried over time. And yeah, one failure gets a lot of news, but how many not failures have there been, and how many countless airports that also run the Decor system over time? So
the poor guy that has to maintain the Windows 3.1 box or whatever it is.
Well, that's a problem as people retire, right? How many
Right.
people actually still know how to maintain that? And then finally, Frank from It's More Fun in the Philippines, and he says that's the actual country tourism slogan, wrote in about the competitive landscape in his country and how it's changing. Philippines has two carriers, PLDT and Globe, that are not heavily regulated, and their average speed is 3.6 megabits per second. Frank says they pay $22 for a 2 megabit per second connection. But, he writes, Telstra from Australia is in talks to operate in the Philippines. As of now, it isn't final, and would most likely take some time to get off the ground, until even if it were. But you can already see the incumbents start to offer better packages at better prices now that they have offers that rivals or even better those from other countries. This is all just from the threat of having another competitor.
Competition, baby. It forces people to do things that you are happy they end up doing. So I think this is as good a proof as any that competition is good, especially when it comes to telcos and wireless and all that stuff.
Salamat, Frank, for sending us that that Philippines report. And thank you, Scott Johnson, as always, being on the show. If anybody doesn't know, I don't know how you couldn't. Scott is all over the Frog Pants Network, his own domain, frogpants.com. You got loads of cool stuff there.
There is always something cool happening. I'm happy to report, if you've been following my book compilation of my webcomic for the last 14 years, that I have submitted final drafts to the printer. We're waiting for proofs. Once that's done, these things start shipping. I am super jazzed to be at this stage and to finally be at that place where we are just about done with that whole project. And I'm very excited to get it out to people. So if you want to follow progress on that or any of the shows I run, produce, host, or share, go to frogpants.com and follow me on Twitter at Scott Johnson, as always.
Thank you, folks, for supporting the show. We are on our way to getting a Day 6 version hosted internationally. And if you'd like to see that happen and you're not already helping the show, or you want to increase your pledge a little bit, or if you're just like, you know what, I have $1 a month that I get out of this show and I want to give $1 a month back to it, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. And by the way, if you're one of the people who sent us one of these things,
podcasts about technology,
you know, that we play before the show, I'm gonna be changing the Patreon URL. So I want new ones that say dailytechnewsshow.com/support. So send those to us, feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. All right. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. I just told you that. Call us 512-59-DAILY. That's 593-2459. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And visit our website at dailytechnewsshow.com. Double Justin Robert Young. We got him again tomorrow. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Double
All right.
Justin, man.
Yeah, he was on Monday, too, filling in for Veronica.
Exciting.
Double
Where's
complete
Canada?
Justin.
She went she went out of town or flew somewhere or did something fun, right?
Who, Jenny? Oh, no, she's got a cold today.
Oh, everyone's got something.
I know. But thanks to Lindsay Gilpin for jumping in and writing headlines today. Woo.
Yeah, Lindsay's great.
Yeah. I'm going to have to figure out. Okay, so the old way, I could use my right hand on the tablet while my left hand ran through the things. Now I've got it both left hands. So I have
Is
to
the Pro
swap
is the
this.
Pro your new tablet? Is that why it moved?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason it moved is because I got the keyboard. I wouldn't have to move it. I could keep it in tablet mode, but I have the keyboard, so it's nice as I have it in front of me. But I think I need to have it here.
I see. No, dude, you have a system. You have to stick to it. You got to know what you want. I like it.
Changing things up. What do we got for titles there? Are we share yet?
Are we share yet? I would like to spell that CHER, please.
Driving Miss Data.
Uh-huh. Spiner, eat your heart out.
Don't make me stop this car, ownership. Drive it like you share it.
Okay.
Driving Miss Lazy.
Okay.
Johnny Cabs for all.
All right.
I don't know. There's a bunch more. Showbot.tv.
Johnny Cabs for all.
Which one you like the best?
Drive it like you share it. I think I kind of like that.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah. I think it's not even that clever, but it seems to encapsulate the conversation for some reason in my head.
I really like Driving Miss Lazy and
Driving Miss Lazy is pretty
and
good.
Are We Share Yet?
All right. Actually, you're right. Both those are better. Driving Miss Lazy is pretty good.
It just makes me laugh.
It's pretty good.
Are We Share Yet is winning the vote, though. So I don't know. I'm gonna let these percolate here a little bit while I levelate.
I'm a big fan of the dad jokiness.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty good.
Non-profit starter. That was pretty funny. If the people are preferring Are We Share Yet?
Are We Share Yet's pretty good. It's pretty good.
We might have to bow to the will of the people this time.
Let the people have their say.
I like Driving Miss Lazy. Scott likes to Drive It Like You Share It.
I think Driving Miss Lazy is pretty good, but I think the people have spoken, and that other one's pretty good too.
All right, Are We Share Yet?
Yeah, it's good. It's solid.
I don't want to save the project. I want to export the audio. Audacity, why are you doing that? Are We Share Yet? And I will spell it C-H. No, just kidding. I won't do that.
We're not sure yet. That's her voice. Her dad.
I got you, babe.
I got you, babe. I used to be able to do a share voice. I can't do it now.
I've got you to title my podcast.
Good stuff.
Good times, good times.
Good times, good times.
I liked this little report to kick around today. That was fun.
I did too. Actually, it was a really good show in general. I like the flow of everything.
Yeah, tight.
Everything went good, nice and tight.
Yeah.
Not too long, not too short.
Not too boring, not too exciting.
Exactly. Almost. I'm going through their recommendations of great apps for the iPad Pro.
Oh. You know what the greatest apps for the iPad Pro for me are?
What?
The ones that I already had on my old iPad
Your old
that are
iPad.
now on a bigger screen.
Well, for me, once I get the pen especially,
Yeah.
I'm very excited. These Adobe app integrations are really cool. I didn't expect that. I thought it was going to be kind of half-aid, but it's pretty strong. And they work really well.
I haven't had this thing plugged in 3 days either, by the way. And I'm at
Really?
79%.
That's really good. Well, I got it today at 89, and I'm at 85, and I've been dinking with it on and off all day. So battery seems good. They seem to consistent with what they said it would do, 10 to 12 hours or whatever.
All right. I'm going to hold on. Turn that down. Let's see. Let's just see. I'm going to experiment while I'm exporting here. Could this possibly work? It's going to be weird about the chords. Might have to change where the chords go. Oh, that one's not going to like it. Oh, what did I just do?
What'd you do?
I think I turned off. Yeah, I turned off the lights.
I'm
I'm going to have to rerun some of these chords. But, and then this one has to go way over here. I'm rewiring the entire studio before your very eyes.
I like it.
All right, so that keyboard's there. This is here. That's a little wonky, but I'll fix those cables. Oh, jeez, don't do that. Like my play-by-play.
I like it, actually.
I can't. Okay, the problem here now is I can't see the full screen because I've got my laptop in front of me.
That seems bad.
That's not going to work. But this is definitely better.
I do.
Yeah.
I do this exact same thing. I talk myself through it. I do. I can't help it.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Now, if I get that little piece of quinoa off the keyboard.
Hey, Comixology should be good on here, shouldn't it?
Oh, it's great.
I'll bet
It's one of the best things.
I forgot all about that.
I'm still not convinced that you really need this large of a screen.
Yeah.
The keyboard has definitely changed my opinion somewhat on that. But yeah, comics are glorious on this. I got 3 new ones today too.
You're all caught up on the Star Wars stuff?
Well, yeah, there's a new Star Wars comic today. There's a one-off called Vader today, and there's a Kanan issue of Kanan out today.
Oh wow! All right.
I'm gonna need a bigger desk. You're right, Bioka.
Get your desk to Mars.
Get your desk to Mars. That fixes this problem, but the other problem now is that my laptop screen is covering the bottom part of that screen, and I can't raise that screen anymore, or it will get into the camera.
Weird.
Get in the camera shot.
The Dark Horse app has better reviews these days
Than it used to, or than something else?
It used to. It used to be kind of crap, but maybe that's
good. Although the Dark Horse doesn't have the Star Wars stuff anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they still have a lot of stuff I like. That was a big loss for them. That Buffy comic's really good, though.
Tell you what, I was reading all my comics on my Nexus 9, which is great. I have no problem with that. It's just this bigger screen is just so nice. But then Comixology's subscriptions thing has made it so that not being able to buy, even though you can't get the store on the iOS version of Comixology, it doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah. Yeah, that still bugs me. But
That's one of the reasons I switched to the Nexus 9. It was like, it's a great looking screen, and I can actually buy comics from within the app.
Yeah.
But as soon as I started subscribing, like, I don't know why I didn't do this for The Walking Dead years ago.
Yeah.
I would just always have to go in and remember to buy it. And now that I subscribe, it just shows up.
Yeah.
And I get a little email telling me, like, hey, these are the comics coming tomorrow.
What they should do is a comic box or a pull list.
They have pull lists
They do.
on the website.
Yeah, the Marvel the Marvel Unlimited app. I wonder if that's improved. I hated some of how that worked, but it probably looked pretty good on here. I don't have that subscription anymore, though. I'm just thinking about all the big things I want to do. Comics.
Yeah, I probably should get the Marvel Unlimited. Are the Star Wars comics part of that, though?
No. Now, actually, you say that?
Yeah.
I don't think so. At least not. I think didn't they have some kind of weird wait period? It was like 6 months, or I think it's all about archive. But I'd love that you could go back as far as, like, Stan Lee stuff in the '60s, or all the way up to pretty current.
When Comixology first got Marvel on board, I went back and read, like, the whole first year of Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. And
It's really fun to do those old ones.
yeah.
I like that.
It's really interesting juxtaposition about how contemporary culture has changed and how mindsets of how things are,
Definitely.
especially gender roles, was really obvious, even in the '60s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The '60s were, well, I wasn't here for most of them, but for the half year I lived in the '60s.
Well, no, if you go by the pedant guide, the year 1970 is the last year of the decade, the 1960s, because the decade doesn't start until 1971.
That's a good point.
So you got a year and a half.
Yeah. I was old enough to. Well, I was still pooping myself, so it's fine.
Yeah, because that's why I'm able to say, yeah, I was born in the 60s, 1970.
Yeah. King.com. You think the what's their names? I can't think of their names now.
By the way, Driving Miss Lazy is now the #1 on Showbot. But
Really good. Do you think Bejeweled and PopCap, do you think they look at what King has done, and all their games are matching up gems, basically? Look at them and go, you bastards.
Well,
Yeah,
Bejeweled has done okay.
But Bejeweled is. I mean, are you saying? Do you think they feel cheated?
Well, these guys they took their core game, right, and made, I'm looking here, this is like, just for the iPhone alone, there's something like 20 of these, and plus it's cross-platform, and they're doing revenue of, what did Activision report, like $480 million a month or some crazy number, or whatever it was. I just feel like, I don't know, PopCap, it's their own fault. They missed the boat. But to me, it's like when somebody made a World of Warcraft or a Warcraft 3 mod, called it Dota.
Yeah.
Took over the world, and then Blizzard's like, wait a minute, what about us?
Hold on a minute. We invented that, didn't really? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Judge. That's how that went.
Sorry, Judge.
We'll let Steam have it. Sorry, Valve.
Anyway. They're all...
So I watched Revenge of the Sith last night.
Oh, yeah. You were saying how... what was your takeaway? Because you've said on the others kind of what you walked away feeling pretty good about them. Or better.
Attack of the Clones, I walked away feeling less good than I had, if that is believable to you. Revenge of the Sith, about the same as I always felt about it. The looking at it as if I don't know anything other than the first 2 episodes, it feels like a recovery from Attack of the Clones. It makes things that are confusing in Attack of the Clones finally make sense, because you have that blow your mind moment when you find out, first of all, that Palpatine is a Sith. You're like, what? Yeah. And then that Palpatine and Sidious were the same guy. Right? Like we lose that as Star Wars fans, because we're like, well, yeah, we know.
Of course we knew, of course.
But if you don't know that, you never see Sidious, right? He's always robed. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert. And so there's that blow your mind moment, and then suddenly you're like, now it makes sense why the clone army was ordered by Tyrannus, and why the Chancellor allowed them to just use. It still doesn't make sense to me why the Jedi would allow a clone army to be used when they didn't really order it. But more things make sense. They tie it up. The problem is, like, you're about a half an hour before the end of the movie, you're like, okay, the story's over. And they're like, well, now we have to show where this baby goes. And now we have to show where this baby goes. And it starts to drag out.
How did the midichlorian stuff land on you as someone who's gone through the prequels, as trying to be as open-minded and...
Well, because you get it in the episode 1, midichlorians doesn't land on you at all. At least that's my feeling. It's just like, oh, okay, so there's this thing that lets you tell if somebody is capable of doing the magic tricks that these guys do. That's fantasy. That's just part of the world, right? No, there's nothing to object to there.
Yeah.
There, that's no different than, oh, wizards exist in Lord of the Rings. Okay, fine. What does make you go, wait a minute, what is there was no father?
Yeah.
Like, really? I thought this was like a space adventure, and now you're like virgin birth? That's a little bit too far.
Well, she could have been saying that she was just,
didn't know the father.
She had IVF.
She had IVF.
She had space IVF.
Oh, the other thing about that, and you going back to Phantom Menace, is like, what did she do?
Mm-hmm.
She was supposedly owned by Watto, but we never see her do anything but take care of the house.
Yeah, her own house.
Yeah. Which I assume is Watto's house. I mean, he must own it if he owns.
Well, he must. It's weird. It's the same issue I had with the Queen of Naboo being elected.
There's nothing wrong with that. There've been plenty of elective monarchies throughout history.
You don't like that. I love that.
I don't. It's ridiculous. Just saying that she got dethroned and they went to some sort of, parliamentary. I don't know. Just ridiculous. And then why do they have to wear all the? Okay, I understand that it's an office and you got to put on the ridiculous, semi-offensive, quasi, kind of geisha girl makeup and bullshit, the rest of it. But it was just, I didn't buy it at all. I didn't find it.
I didn't trying to look at it through young eyes it just seemed like, oh, okay, they're doing an elective monarchy. That's interesting. I guess. I think what bothered me more than there being an elective monarchy was that you could stop being queen and become senator.
Yeah.
That just seemed weird.
It is weird. Hey, who are we to say?
Like, you don't, it feels weird because you don't ever see Bill Clinton running for Senate or George Bush running for Senate. Once you're done being president, you retire. I would assume in Naboo that being queen is pretty pressure intensive, but maybe not.
Well, so my thing is, okay, fine, elected queen wearer. That would just imply you're ruling until you keel off the throne, or
what?
Being the monarchy, I don't know, just implies to me that it's a lifetime job.
No,
you don't.
No, it doesn't. That's like saying the Pope is a lifetime job.
Yeah, but the Pope isn't a monarchy.
He's the
Yes,
poop.
it is.
Well, yeah, Vatican City, right?
It's a really horrible analogy, and I used it on purpose because it's an awful
It's
analogy.
like,
And that, I don't know. For more on that, listen to East Meets West.
well, okay. One final thing.
Okay.
The one thing that bothered me about Star Wars is they never. You can find this in the expanded universe, but how the hell did all these humans end up on all these vastly different planets with obviously indigenous life forms and just manage to run the planet?
That seems actually more believable than anything.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it's not believable. It's just never explained. It's just assumed that the human Nabooians or Naboo, whatever people from Naboo.
They've just been there for a long time.
Nabooians.
Naboo. Yeah, what do you call someone from Naboo?
The Nabooians are either on or off. It's either yes or no.
Naboolean logic.
And why would you be a moisture farmer? Wouldn't it just make more sense to have a ship in towing?
You be a moisture farmer, Roger, because you can sell moisture.
Is that why?
It's economics.
On a
Why
desert?
would someone just build one of those things in the backyard and then just, instead of having to go to a store to pay for it?
Why don't you just grow corn in your backyard?
I do. You can.
And yet we have corn farmers.
Yeah, do we have moisture farmers? No. It's like having
Yeah,
a
we got
wind
plenty of
farmer.
moisture. We're not Tatooine.
Or
As I said, for more on this, visit East Means West. I'm going to shut this down. Thanks, everybody, for watching, though, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.